It's 6 p.m. here in the nation's economic capital, Douala. Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching the 6 p.m. newscast on Spectrum television. On our lone or on our top stories, uncertainty still looms over who chairs the board of directors of the Douala Metropolitan Company as the former delegate to the Douala City Council, Dr. Fritz Kone, and the Douala City Mayor, Roger Mbasandine, are yet to come to a compromise regarding the chairman's position. And the death of 3 traditional rulers of Lebialem division in the southwest region still remains fresh in the minds of sons and daughters of the division. This follows a protest today at the National Museum in Yaoundé to denounce the continuous atrocities committed by separatist fighters. Minister Paul Tassong will let the delegation says Lebialem say no to terrorism. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching the 6 p.m. newscast on Spectrum Television. I am Catherine Kone. Sons and daughters of Lebialem resident in Yaoundé have today, February 17, staged a march at the National Museum to denounce the barbaric act committed by separatist fighters in their hometown. The protest was led by Minister Paul Tassong, few days after the killings of 3 traditional rulers of Lebialem. Details in the following report.
As of Lebialem division in the southwest region, Minister Paul Tassong has today in Yaoundé led a protest to denounce the continuous barbaric act committed in the division.
To tell the national and international opinion that we've had enough. We've had enough because since 2016 and particularly 2017 and again a bit more reinforced, particularly in 2018 till today, the population of Lebialem division have lived under absolute fear. Fear because they get up one morning to realize that their neighbors carry guns across the division. These people of the underworld have committed a certain number of condemnable acts. And our analysis of what they have done so far leads us to question if all of this is to foster secession. Because at the beginning, that's what we heard, that these were people who were clamoring to break away a part of this nation and to create a certain republic. The things they have done lead us to question if all of this are still in the quest for this secession.
Sons and daughters of Lebialem residents in Yaoundé converged on the esplanade of the National Museum to call for an end to the current upheaval.
A very recurrent activity, which is kidnapping for ransom. It all started with kidnapping of one of our most senior elites for a ransom on the 17th of March 2018. That was the first day that this whole thing started in the Lebialem division. Thereafter, kidnapping and negotiating huge sums in return for the kidnapped to be released is more or less a daily activity. Secondly, we have noted a kind of confiscation of our agriculture. We are a very rural division. Most of the citizens living in our division depend highly on agriculture for survival. We have noticed that the farms now have new owners. New owners who didn't till the soil, who didn't plant non-functioning. On a single day, a certain Lekeka Oliver, called Field Marshal, working on instructions of his brother Christopher Anu, did a tour of all the villages, break into the safes of all the microfinances and made away with the contents of those safes. Fourthly, we've noticed that there is rampant kidnapping for sex in our division.
He added that these chiefs were killed because they refused to adhere to the commands of the separatist fighters.
And we ask ourselves the question, why all this Is all of this done on the people of Lebialem as a way of fostering the cause of the secessionist movement? We say no. We say no because we would have expected that those who give orders to these rascals and thieves in our division, if they truly had an agenda of secession, they would have called these rascals, these thieves to order, because they are thwarting, or they should be thwarting their cause, if a cause they were.
It should be recalled that this is coming few days after 3 traditional chiefs in Lebialem were pulled out of their homes in Lebialem and reportedly killed by separatist fighters.
And now, as tensions continue to escalate in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon with the recent military brutality on a suspected separatist fighter and the killing of 3 traditional rulers in a Lebialem division that is in the southwest region of Cameroon, some political actors have become vocal about it and asked the government to find a common ground of reasoning with the people. Details with Josephine Binzi.
Secessionist excesses and military brutality has reached fever pitch, with recent attacks on Matazim, Mautu, Lebialem, Ndu and Batibo. Heinous occurrences which Edith Kabangwala, president of CPP, castigates both government and separatists for unprofessionalism and irresponsibility.
Dehumanizing ourselves, whether it is the violence from the separatists, whether it is the violence from the military, we are dehumanizing ourselves. And we go once again to government. The blame and the responsibility lies in the hands of government. We have always said that we were never supposed to have a war in this conflict, especially in January 2021, and it is clear that violence is escalating. And finally, what we can say is
picking up arms against the state and taking lives is no justification to push their secessionist agenda, says Barrister Tamfu.
I think the atrocities, when you look about it, there's nothing can justify the act of you taking somebody's life. So what the separatists did, maybe through field marshal, those are criminal acts. Those are crimes against humanity. There is no reason for whatever that a separatist fighter will take somebody's life on the pretext that they are maybe traitors, or that they participated in what is ongoing with the government. I think, to me, when you look at what is happening, any soul that is being lost is an excess for nothing.
Demilitarizing the northwest and southwest is not as important as addressing the root cause of the Anglophone crisis.
When now we cannot talk just about demilitarizing. The fundamental problem, the Anglophone problem, is a political problem. And the most important thing is that government begin the political process of dialogue, of discussion, of resolving the root causes of this problem, so that we can get to a ceasefire.
Violation of human rights cannot be a solution to the crisis, as meeting the needs of the people is most paramount. Many are still in high anticipation for a permanent solution to be spelled out for peace and normalcy to return to these crisis-hit zones.
And now, with the objective of strengthening the capacities of women and girls, human rights defenders have provided them with legal protection, mobilized and sensitized them so that they are at the center of conflict preventions, peace building and national reconciliation. Once more, Josephine Binzi.
Widening the girl child's scope and enlarging their capacities to be iconic in various spheres of lives in conflict-hit countries and zones is the objective of the Human Rights Defenders Network in Central Africa, RIDAC, today at a press conference. This has also been an opportunity to arm them against the vices of their society.
To be the most vulnerable group, we know women and children when it comes to when there's turbulence, when there's war, when things are not okay, women tend to be the victims. But I don't want to use the word victims, I call them survivors. But anyway, but women go through a lot. They have so many challenges and fending for their families. Some of them even lost their husbands, and so many. Our focus, women and children, women and the girl child, are our focus, because if the woman succeeds, if she survives, if she conquers, then the entire community will be a success.
With the Central African Republic and Cameroon to benefit firsthand from the program, improving knowledge and skills and inter-community dialogue sessions are some of the avenues discussed to empower the girl child.
Protection des jeunes filles et des femmes et des défenseurs avec l'adoption probablement de la loi.
We intend protecting the young girl and women in conflict-hit countries, and organizing inter-community dialogue is meant to prevent girls from being harmed. Reconciliation and peace, as well as training these defenders, is also the goal of our partners, who are also collaborators in search for peace in the protection of the young girl and women who are in conflict-hit countries. This has taken place today in Douala, today Wednesday, February 17, with the technical and financial support of Global Affairs Canada.
Let's now talk about something else. 1 year after the creation of the container terminal units of the Douala port in Bonneberry in January 2020, after much hustle between results obtained, the difficulties encountered at and the numerous complaints, the Deputy Managing Director for Stens in Ghana gives us a balance sheet of these companies' activities now in the hands of Cameroonian expertise in the following excerpt.
Le 1er janvier, il y avait des hésitations, des doutes qui en fait étaient entre...
On January 1, there were hesitations and doubts, which actually was maintained by a destruction campaign by those who, despite all we are doing, continue saying we are not fit to carry out this job. Whereas the facts are there, and that's what we present to you. Our clients can as well testify. For instance, in 2020, we were able to deliver 123 containers to our clients, whereas in 2019, the previous operator had delivered just 116. And you can all imagine the context with which we carry out all these operations, a context characterized by the lockdown of borders, which does not favor the efficient maintenance of our equipment. But we, however, developed ingenious strategies that permitted us to steer clear of these difficulties, which for some found them a hindrance to achieve our task. We handled just as many vessels. You all saw the statistics. We also embarked and disembarked as many vessels as did the previous operators. Do the comparative analysis in the same context. We are in a general, very difficult context. It's also important to emphasize that some of the traffics we handled, for instance, is transported by amateurs, and if these amateurs come to us, it's because of the confidence they've placed on us. So there is the attractive aspect of it, which permits you to deliver a high-standing service, and all of that builds in confidence for a vessel to be given to you to handle. You got the statistics. We have ameliorated the performance in all the activities at the terminal, and we have as perspective to do more.
Et nous avons des perspectives pour faire davantage.
And now, former government delegate at the Douala Urban Council, Dr. Fries Ntone, and present city mayor of the Douala Urban Council, Roger Mbasanzine, are yet to come to a common ground of understanding over the position of the chairman of the board of directors of the Douala Metropolitan Company. Details with Josephine Binzi.
The Metropolitan Investment Company, in its French acronym SMID, is said to be the trophy bargained for between Roger Mbasandine, the city mayor of Douala, and Fritz Ntonentone, former government delegate of the Douala Urban Council. A 12 February decision at the Bonanjo Court of First Instance has sparked a feud as a squad of police officers led by the judicial officer took over the company's premises to execute the court's decision to suspend its activities and seal the doors of the structure. The request was tabled by the city mayor, Roger Mbasandine, who aimed at replacing former government delegate Fritz Ntonentone as chairman of the board of directors of the SMID. Fabrice Chingo Peton, who was appointed at the end of the ordinary session of the company's board of directors on December 29, 2020, describes it as a regrettable coup de force and reassures administrators and shareholders that arrangements are being made for a rapid return to normal. The constitutive text of the company provides that there are 4 categories of shareholders, with Category A belonging to the Douala Urban Council with 23% of capital, Category B made up of public parastatal companies of 10%, Category C made up of private companies in 20% of capital, and Category D constituting natural persons of 47%. No individual, as stipulated in the company's orders, is permitted to own more than 5% of the capital of the company. On analysis, the private sector could own 67% of the capital under the control and supervision of the Commission of Financial Market Surveillance, except that the company stipulates in its statutes that the post of chairman of board of directors goes to the government delegate, which is now abolished in place of city mayor. Strong suspicions of embezzlement hang over the administrators of the company. A September 4, 2020 court order had earlier extended the mandate of the directors of the SMID and the holding of the general meeting of shareholders scheduled for December 2020 to March 25, 2021. A meeting aimed at examining the company's accounts, statutory, audit reports, renewal of directors. In the meantime, the company's councils have appealed against the court's decision to put it under provisional administration, and an appeal scheduled for February 26, 2021.
And now on to religion. Catholic Christians all over the world have commemorated Ash Wednesday today, which marks the start of the Lenten period, leading up to Easter, when Christians believe Jesus died and was resurrected. Our reporter Christe Asek Swele attended this commemoration mass at the St. Peter and Paul Cathedral here in Akwa, Douala, and fires in the following report.
Christians of the St. Paul and Peter's Parish of the Catholic Church in Akwa Douala have today gathered in their numbers to receive the ashes, which represent a Christian's grief and mourning for their sins.
Le mercredi des Cendres marque le
Ash Wednesday marks the beginning of Lent, which is 40 days of penance and 40 days proceeding to the celebration of Easter.
de la solennité de Pâques, le mystère central de notre foi.
These ashes gathered from the burnt palms from Palm Sunday, deposited in church by Christians, is placed on the foreheads of the Christians as a sign of belonging to Christ. This period is marked by 3 pillars: fasting, prayers, and practicing of charity, which are the things the Christian has to practice during these 40 days of Lent. However, it's also a period of conversion and deepening our bonds and spiritual battles against evil in every form. Officially known as the Day of Ashes, Ash Wednesday is a day of repentance when Christians confess their sins and profess their devotion to God, and this day is commemorated by all Catholic Christians worldwide.
now take on to our international page with the VOA.
Agents against violence. Violence against us.
Protesters have taken to the streets to speak out against hate following a sharp uptick in attacks against Asian Americans over the past month, most recently in Oakland, California.
It could have been my mother, or it could have been my father or my grandparent that was attacked in the driveway.
Oakland police have responded by shifting more resources into the city's Chinatown area.
We've shifted resources to our Chinatown community. We've put our command posts in the Chinatown community, moving it from different locations so that it's seen as a presence throughout Chinatown. We've increased our routine patrols in our Chinatown area.
Reported attacks on Asian Americans have been steadily rising since the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic, which former President Trump called the China virus because of its origins in Wuhan.
We do know that the rise in anti-Asian racism and attacks against our community over the past year has had devastating impacts.
More than 2,800 incidents of racism and discrimination against Asian Americans in the U.S. have been reported over the past year to the organization Stop AAPI Hate. President Joe Biden signed an executive order last month aimed at combating racial discrimination against Asian Americans.
He is concerned about the discrimination against, the actions against the Asian American community.
Most of the reported incidents against Asian Americans since last March were cases involving verbal harassment or shunning, while about 9% of incidents reported physical assaults. Isha Sarai, VOA News, Washington.
That brings us to the end of the 6 p.m. newscast on Spectrum Television. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching and have a wonderful evening.